Welcome to Design Diary, the podcast where you get to look inside my board game design notebook as well as what's going on inside my head. We look at a new word each day from the sense of mechanics, tone, theme, or inspiration for a full game. Today's word is
Embargo, an order of a government prohibiting the departure of commercial ships from its ports. A legal prohibition on commerce. Stoppage, impediment, especially prohibition. An order by a common carrier or public regulatory agency prohibiting or restricting freight transportation. So there it is, embargo. It's just a restriction of some sort of transportation or movement or commerce or anything along those lines. It's essentially a restriction. And I was talking with Jason Glover, who is our guest this weekend, and talking about how some of these are inherently gamey. Like embargo feels very gamey, and it to me that's sort. I thought that was going to be an easier thing, but it's harder at the same time because, like, you can think of, and as I go through this and hear what I wrote, it's almost like a common element in a lot of games, and it could be an entire game that's just based on this embargo, and it's hard to kind of dig deep into a word that is very specific like this. But I try it, so here we go. Let's get into it. I said embargo as a theme. Players are the government ruling on the status of ships. And I went heavy on government prohibiting the departure of ships from its ports. There's another, definition, which is the, not trading with certain countries and things like that, which I dive into at the end. But for the bulk of this, I went with that first definition because I like that. So embargo is a theme. Players are the government ruling on the status of ships with pressure from all sides. So ships are held, and you're ruling whether they're moving or not. And there's obviously like favors and reasons and preference and reasons that you want certain ships to be released and others not to. Influence and all that fun stuff. So that's one little embargo theme side. Another one is players are workers on a ship, making the most of their time while they're landlocked. So the ship's stuck in a port, and you've got 50 people that work on it. What are those people going to do? Exploring that is neat. I don't know if you're exploring what they're doing for fun or what they're doing for work because they need to make some money, or if they're union and they make money while they're already landlocked and nothing matters. So I sort of went the next step in that, and I said players are workers on a ship forced to stay in the port because there's an embargo, but because there was a murder on the ship. And that's where I start to get interested. Some flair or some drama in a unique setting. It's not just that somebody was killed. Somebody was killed on a ship, stuck on the port. Everybody's locked on that ship. It's sort of like Murder on the Orient Express. Nobody's leaving that train. You know all your suspects, and figuring it out. So another variation on that would be a cargo ship, and there's some neat things with that because somebody could have jumped off of the ship or been thrown off of the ship or things like that. But they know the roster when it left. They know who's still there. So that was an interesting theme or setting for it. So I went into as an action. What is an embargo as an action? And it could be the closing of the port or the locking up of a space on a map. It's the blocking or the prevention of interaction with an area, things like that. Something interesting would be in a worker placement game with player tokens all over the board and an embargo coming into play and forcing tokens to sort of stay where they are or not interact in a certain area for a time being. What's cool about that is generally in a worker placement game, everything's available, but having, until somebody took it. But having certain places not available due to the actions of players makes for an interesting change where you can't have a dominant strategy where you go to this every time or the first person to the whatever hut in Stone Age is getting more workers and things like that. If some sort of in-game embargo were to place those places on hold, people have to change their their approach, which I think is neat. Let's see. I have if there's tokens all overboard, embargo comes into play, forces tokens to stay where they are. Okay, so sometimes your tokens could get locked, in this worker placement game. They're in a spot, and before you can take them back to use them again, that embargo happens. The first definition, where you can't remove the ships from its ports, and players would wind up having less opportunities the next round because they don't have as many workers and things like that. That's not always super fun, having less options, but creating less options and having those fair warnings and having the game state force those less options due to everybody's choices is a more interesting side of it. So embargo is a phase. So we've had a theme, an action, and now a phase. An embargo phase could be neat if it wasn't very static. So imagine you're playing a shipping game. Let's say a pick up and deliver shipping game. And certain actions or reactions, and which I've been kind of doing in all of these, trigger the embargo clock to count down. So, and it could be much more thematic than this embargo clock, but something adds to this. The heat's rising, and eventually they're going to block this area. So the clock's going and going and going. Meanwhile, you're shipping things. You want to drop them off there because you get lots of money for it. And there's a little bit of press your luck as that clock's counting down, and maybe an area is the hot spot that you want to get them in there and be the last one before the embargo hits. So it's neat to try to push your luck before those ports are shut down. And during that embargo phase, so the phase happens. Now the embargo's out there. All the ports in Area X can't function. Or maybe just there's no shipping. It's a straight up full worldwide embargo. Players have alternate means to make money during this phase. They would, press the government to drop the embargo order, ship in other areas that aren't affected, or start working off of the land or things like that. But having it as a phase that is coming, but you can fluctuate when it comes and where it comes and how close you want to push yourself to that could be neat as well. So the last thing I wrote was another aspect of this is not as much in the main definition, but in the ban of trade with a particular country, which is interesting if you're making like a big worldwide commerce game and players have control over a variety of countries. Maybe you have control in 8 countries out of 10 or something like that. And on the side, there's this conflict going, and you're almost fighting a war on 2 fronts. You're shipping and trying to make some money, but you're also negotiating and in these worldwide issues. Eventually, if an embargo happens and trade is banned for a particular country, however much you have invested in that country is going to be a problem. So I think all of this has been done, and I wanted to try to abstract it out a bit to try to get to something that uses the essence of embargo, but not the theme and everything that we've talked about. So cards and numbers, for example, just cards, not even numbers, even colors. All the colors of the rainbow on a card. 7 colors, seven card types. Everybody has cards of all types, and they have their own, let's say, a token that's in their color, their player color, which is different than the card color. And that's just your player token to represent that you are there. And I don't even think you need the player token. So let's just zap that. Now we got the cards with numbers. And you play a card in front of you. On your turn, you can do one of a few things. You play a card in front of you. And that just means that you've established yourself in this location. So let's say I put it in red. Now I am established in the red country. You can play a red card in front of you. You're established there too. If you play a second red card in front of you, now you've got 2 there. So let's say for each card there, you can harvest the area and it'll create resources. And the resources are, let's say discs. So if I have 2 red cards in front of me in a pile, and I spend a turn harvesting the resources, I put 2 red discs on top of my red cards. Now on another turn, I can choose to play a yellow card. If I play a yellow card, now I have 2 red and a yellow. These represent different locations. Now I can move the discs from one to the other, and I'm going to get paid for them. How much I get paid? Let's say it's the top card. So that dictates your market. So if I played a red card down first, that was like a 2, and later on I can play a 7. Now my discs are worth more. So what I think could be neat about this is another action being playing a card to the center, which is the hot contested area. So whoever's the majority color in the center is blocked. You cannot trade to or from those areas, for this round or something along those lines. So it's one of those dream games where you have like 3 choices and hopefully it all comes together. It doesn't often. Usually you need much more complexity. But I was just thinking, your actions are you play something in front of you, you generate resources, or you play to the center to try to put the heat on other areas, and then your last action would be to move from one of your locations to another. So if I move my disc from my red card to my yellow card, now it's going to convert to points. And the points are based on whatever it was coming from the red card or whatever it hits the yellow card at, or something along those lines. Just to, it's resource management, a little bit of pick up and deliver, and a little bit of that embargo where you can have that majority card in the center, and then all of a sudden, nobody can trade with red this round. Which, I don't know, there might be something. I like abstracting things quite a bit, so very easy to prototype as well. But yeah, so if you have anything for Embargo, if you've worked on a game with any sort of Embargo phase or even in the theme, let me know. It's an interesting one. It's just so close to it's so gamey that it's hard to game to me, or at least just today. Some days I kind of just take it and run with it, and other days I get stuck on the word. So let me know what you have, and we will see you tomorrow and every other day with Design Diary. All right, see ya.